All right, guys, I'm here with two-time published author Korrie Leer from California. Hi, Korrie.
Hi.
Thank
Hi,
you
Miss
so much.
Scott.
Thank you for agreeing to meet with us today.
Of course, I'm so excited.
So my students had a lot of questions for you, and I know I sent you a couple of them, but I have a printout right here, and I'm just going to kind of bounce
Perfect.
around. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
All right, just to begin with, can we just get some background or when and why you decided to be an author?
Sure. So I grew up drawing constantly, would ask my parents, like, tell me what to draw. Tell me what to draw. Art was my favorite subject in school. So illustrating was definitely the beginning of writing books. I didn't really think of it as a real job until I went to college for teaching, like your teacher, Miss Dot. And I'm sure, like me, she had to take a lot of children's literature classes. So while doing that, I actually had one teacher who told me that children's books is a real job and something that adults can do as a career. And I thought that was super cool. And with some help from that teacher, I started pursuing writing and illustrating as a job.
Oh, that's awesome. We have a lot of doodlers in our class, so I think they'll be very
That's
excited to hear that that's what happened first, that they were drawing
I
before
was
writing.
definitely a doodler in class too,
Awesome.
all over my house.
So I guess this answers the next question, that you didn't really think you would be published as a child, or was that something that you ever thought about?
I just don't think I ever thought about it. I thought authors were like superheroes, like totally impossible to do as a regular person. And you grow up and you realize if you work hard, you can do it yourself. So I don't think I even thought about it until I was in college.
Very cool. I like that. What is your favorite part about being an author and an illustrator?
Um, so far, I've done a lot of work just alone, but I'm thinking my favorite part is going to be actually meeting the kids like you all. So you should know this is my first time ever meeting with a class. So you guys are very special to me. But yeah, this part's really cool. I'm liking this a lot.
That's awesome. Who was your inspiration, or what was your inspiration to start writing besides that
Um,
teacher?
Besides that teacher, a lot of my stories from my own childhood. So my first two books are both about my little sister and brother who are pretty absurd. So I think just looking at your life, and if you think you can tell a story about what's going on around you, anyone can do it. And that's where my inspiration came from.
All right, let's keep going with that and talking about your two books that are actually published. So you said both of them are about your siblings.
They are. My first one is more about my little sister, who is the middle child, and when our little brother was born, cried for 3 days straight because she did not want a little brother. She ran away to our friend's house down the street, but still ran away as a child. So this book is about a little girl who gets a new baby brother. And I think a lot of kids, I'm sure some of you guys have siblings that you don't want to be around sometimes. So this little girl in the book finds a magic box left over from her baby brother's crib and uses that to run away. And it takes her across the ocean and through the mountains and up through space until finally she is alone on her own planet. And then she has to decide if she wants to be alone or if she can handle being with her baby brother.
Ooh,
Not going to give away the ending.
that's perfect for a time like this where they're spending a lot of time with all of their siblings.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people want this magic box right now.
They can definitely relate. And your second book is called Zoommate, correct?
Yes. Also about my sister, who I shared a room with growing up. And if anyone shares a room with a sibling, or even if your parents live together, I'm sure they feel this way too. It's really hard to live with someone, especially when they're so different from you. So this is about a little girl who kicks her sister out as her roommate and tries to replace her with a zoo animal, which
Very
ends
cool.
up being kind of crazy. So she goes through penguins, a kangaroo, a wolf, many different animals before she finds her perfect zoo mate.
Very cool. I like that. I really like that you are using a lot of your childhood to write these books.
Yeah, it's funny how much I remember, and it's probably not totally exactly how I remember it. I'm sure my sister and brother are going to be like, that didn't happen. So this isn't completely true, but it's my story, and that's what you get to do when you're a writer. You get to tell
Very
your
cool.
story.
So a lot of my students are curious about, are these the only 2 books you've written, or have you written more? Do you have ones waiting? How
Yeah,
does a book come into fruition? And
sure.
how many do you have?
So the first one that came out was really just the first idea I had. And starting out, I just wrote, and honestly, my first try was really bad, which is like a lot of writers, or really every single writer, the first thing you write is not going to be great. Then you go back and check over it and revise
Oh,
it.
I'm going to stop you right there. What did you
Yeah,
say about the first thing you ever write or wrote?
horrible. Horrible. I can promise you, your favorite book, your favorite author, the first time they write a book, it is not good. You
That's
will
awesome.
never read the first thing someone writes. It goes through so many steps of checking it and revising it, and then even sharing it with your friends and your teachers to get their feedback. So
Very
just,
cool. I love that.
yeah, just write whatever you think you want to tell the story about, and then go back and fix it. So that's kind of how I got started. So my first book took a really long time. So for a long time, I only had one, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need
Was
to
that
make
your
this
published
better.
book, or did this book never get published yet?
It actually is my published book,
Okay, very cool.
but it definitely took the longest for me to learn how to revise and how to make things better. Now I have a big whiteboard in my office, and I just write down ideas for books. So I have a lot of new ideas. So
Okay.
there will be more books.
How many ideas do you think are on your whiteboard right now?
So I call them, and a lot of people in the writing community call them seeds.
Cool.
So it's really just like the tiniest little idea for a book, and I have about 20 of them.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fun because you can just make a seed out of anything. I have like ridiculous things I see on a walk that kids are doing sometimes, things from my imagination. Yeah, so there will be more. It does take a while to make a whole book out of an idea, though.
So we'll talk about the very first one, since you said that was your very first book you wrote, but you said it was not very good the first time and you had to go over it. How long did it actually take? Can you talk us through like that process of when you first wrote it until you found somebody to publish it?
Yeah, of course. So like I said, first time writing it down was really bad. And it probably took about a year,
Wow.
just because I was starting to figure out how people really write a book, and it took a lot of research online and reaching out to published authors and finding out how they made it work. So yeah, the first one was about a year, which is a long time.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then a lot of the questions that I had for my students were, and even myself, like we don't really understand how you even get a book published, because my students have these great ideas and they are constantly writing for me, and then we don't
Yeah.
really know where to go with the next step. So how do you actually get a book published?
Sure. Yeah, that was definitely a big part of why it took a year too, because I had no idea either. So I researched a lot. So to just make it as simple as possible, it used to be that anyone could just send a book to a publisher and they would write back like, yes, we want to publish your book, or no, we don't think this book is right. Now, because so many people are trying to write books, you have to get an agent first.
Very cool.
So that's the first step. You need to write a book and then send it to agents, and then agents send it to the publisher.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
So it's like it's a long
You're
process.
professional. It's almost like you're famous and you have somebody representing you, which is very cool.
Yes, I do have an agent, which is very fun to tell people, like, talk to my agent.
I like that. That's awesome. And now from so you got an agent. Did it take a while to find one?
It did, yes, it did. And that's just because writing and books are such an opinion thing. Like, I'm sure everyone in your class doesn't have the same favorite book or even like the same kinds of books, which is the same way with publishing. It's not always that they don't think your writing is good or they don't think your drawings are good. People just aren't going to like the same things.
Awesome. That's a great note.
Yeah.
So about your agent, did you ever get told no before?
Yes. Yeah. Before I met my agent, who I'm still with now, I was rejected, I think like 15 times. But even so, Harry Potter, biggest book in the world still, and it's 20 years old. She was rejected, I think it was 55 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
People
awesome.
told,
So how did
yeah.
you deal with rejection? Because I know a lot of my students and adults, we don't do well with critical feedback or someone telling us no, they don't like something that we've put so much time into.
Yeah, definitely. It's always hard. Even once I had my agent and then she started sending it to publishers, they were saying no. So I was still getting no's even after I had someone who liked my book. I think it's just important to remember that it's an opinion and that your writing is special no matter what kind it is. If you worked hard on it, you should know that it's good enough and that someone out there is going to appreciate it. And it
Awesome.
is hard every time to remember that, but it's true.
I like the idea of separating that somebody may not like it, but it doesn't mean that so many others will not.
Exactly.
That's very cool. Let's talk about illustrating. A lot of my students want to know, how do you actually write? They say she doesn't color in the book, does she? So how does she draw the picture, get the colors onto it, and then it becomes part of the page?
Sure. So when I first started, I was painting. Like you would paint a picture and then mail it to the publisher.
Oh, wow.
And they scan it and they add the words. Now with technology, I use my iPad. I actually can show you my iPad, which I'm talking on now, and this pen. And it can look like I'm really painting. It can look like sketching. It is amazing. And then I can just email that to the publisher. So it's digital artwork now.
Do you find that it's harder digitally than it is like physically?
I think it's easier now. It just took some getting used to. But if you have artists in your class, doodlers, they can do it, and it's awesome. You can doodle anywhere.
Many of my students want to know if you were self-taught completely. Is this just everything that you've learned from art classes, or did you go deeper at any point?
I think around 5th and 6th grade, I took like private art classes just because my parents knew I was really into drawing and into art. That didn't last very long though. In college, I took like a random art class, which I liked. Like I always liked the art classes, but I just never really knew where to go for illustrating. So yeah, totally self-taught, YouTube videos, reading articles on like new techniques and stuff, which is really cool now. All the information is out there to learn by yourself.
We tell them that all the time, that all the information is at their fingertips. They just have to be vigilant about getting it.
It really is, and it's amazing. And especially when it's something you really want to do, you'll find the information you need, and you can learn anything.
Oh, I love that. You're preaching. You're preaching right now. You might just take over my class. So another part of it is about being frustrated with your drawings. Do you ever like mess up and have to start over completely, or do you draw like several pictures and then pick the best one that you want to send over? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think, well, actually I took this out to show the kids. So when I'm planning a book, this is called a dummy.
Oh, very cool.
So this will be one page, and just to kind of have an idea of what I want on the page, it's like a really not great doodle of just like the scenes.
Wow.
So that helps with planning. So when I'm starting to draw a picture, I have the plan in my mind. And yeah, sometimes I just cannot get it to look like what I'm picturing in my mind. And it's so frustrating. But some things that help, again, being on the internet, you can search anything. So for example, I was trying to draw like a wood scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't get my imagination picture the way I wanted. You can research pictures of woods for hours on Google. So I pulled a bunch of pictures together, put them, like printed them out, and then used that for inspiration. And I pulled together something that worked for me.
That is
But
awesome.
Yeah, it does take a while and it can be frustrating.
With the technology, are you able just to erase like part of it? That's cool.
Which is another big reason I was super happy to switch.
Is there a certain app they could use?
Yes.
You use to paint on there, or
Procreate is an Apple one, and that's like a professional one, but there are a bunch of drawing apps for iPads and other tablets that are a little cheaper for kids even. that they can use to just like doodle on. So definitely something to look into.
That little graphic organizer that you showed me brought me to my next question. A lot of my students were wondering, what organizers do you use, or do you even use a graphic organizer? Because I'm always telling them, you have to do this before you start to write, and I don't know if they quite believe me.
I would say they probably don't have to, but in the long run, it will be a lot easier for them if they do, just
Awesome.
because everything can be a mess in your mind once you get to the end of a book and you're like, oh my God, what was that idea I had a few days ago for this? And you don't have it anywhere. This is definitely the best thing I've found, especially if you're going to do your pictures too.
Awesome.
I lost. This is actually a new book I'm working on, which I can share with your class if they want to give me some
Yes,
feedback on
that was,
it.
they kept on saying, is she allowed to share anything with us? We want to know.
I can share this new one, and it would actually be really helpful if I could get some opinions on it.
Oh my
But
goodness, they would
so
love
this was,
that.
yeah, that would be awesome for me too. But this was a new book, and I lost this paper for a few days, and I was going crazy. Like, it is gold to me. And actually, I can share this with you too, so they can have this organizer.
Oh my goodness, that is gold for us.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
super helpful.
What is that book title? Do you have a title for that book yet, or?
It is based on a little boy I babysat while he was potty training. So
Awesome.
don't judge the title, but it is called Unicorns Don't Poop.
Love it.
Supposed to be more of a comedy than my other sibling books.
Very cool. A couple of my students also were curious about if you wanted to write any chapter books or like young adult books.
I am actually writing, well, I wrote a young adult novel. So it's like 300 pages, but now just like a picture book, I have to go back and fix it all. So it is taking forever, but it is happening. Maybe by the time they're in high school, it'll be ready for them.
That's awesome though. I love how dedicated you are and you understand the process is going to be long, but in the end it'll be
Yeah.
worth it.
I think as long as you know, it's easy to handle if you
And I'm
expect.
sure they're going to kick me if I don't ask, what is that book going to be about?
So it's a little different than picture books. It's a mystery,
Ooh,
which is what I enjoy reading the most. So I think the best piece of advice I've gotten for writing is write something that you want to read.
cool.
So that is what I'm doing in young adult and in picture books. They're
Awesome.
just different.
Do you find that it's frustrating when you've written your novel because it's so much more to edit than it would be for a children's book, picture
Oh,
book?
it is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just taking so much longer. There's so many words, but it's fun. And again, another reason you should write what you want to read is you're going to be reading your work a lot.
they
So,
they love the word counter on top of their Word
yes.
documents, so they're always yelling across the room to one another, I have 1,300 words, I have 700 words, and they're trying to
Oh my
beat
God. Yeah, that's amazing. I wish I had that while I was writing in my in my house. I'd be so inspired.
Don't you feel that they are so lucky in the time that they're living in and what's at their fingertips and what they could possibly do?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially they have such a creative brain. All right, let me look through my questions so I don't miss too many of them. Okay, the writing process. So I know you have a seed. And
Hmm.
what's next? So you have 20 seeds. How do you say, I'm going to write about my third one today? Or I feel like sitting down and doing
That's
this today.
that's definitely a hard part. And I have a lot of writer friends who have so many ideas that they get frozen for a little bit and they don't do anything. So I think it's important just to pick whatever one speaks to you that day. Just follow your heart, go with the idea that means the most to you. And then the next thing I do is just sit down for like a half hour and just let myself write whatever I want. Don't think about if spelling's right or if grammar's right. Just write anything that comes to mind, just a big brainstorm session. Then I'll go over it and kind of organize it a little more and see if the story even makes sense because I haven't even looked at it while I was writing. And then from there, just keep editing down and down.
Very cool.
Yeah.
They were curious about your schedule. So a couple of them want to know, do you work in an office building, in an office? Do you have an assistant? How do you get yourself to be working throughout the day if you're at home? What are your hours like?
Yeah, I do work from home. I have like my little private office, which helps. I can like be away and pretend I'm like not at my house, which helps. But yeah, it's hard because it's a lot of self-motivating work. So I try to write like a normal job, like while you're in school. I just try to like get up at an early hour, sit down at my desk, so I feel like I have to do something, and try to write until lunchtime, have a break for lunch, and then try to write until like 2 or 3 p.m.
Awesome.
Yeah, or do something for writing.
That you yourself have to make your own schedule, but then make sure that you're actually doing it.
Yes.
Especially when the weather's nice outside and your friends are doing things.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Definitely the hardest part. And for an assistant, no, but I do treat my husband like an assistant sometimes.
We can get him in here to get you a sandwich or something. Or
Exactly. Yeah, forgot my charger or something like that. He runs it over.
Very nice. Now, they're curious about paparazzi following you. Do you feel famous? I know your books haven't quite hit the shelves yet, and then I'm sure it's going to be a whole new whirlwind. But talk about all of a sudden that you've reached this goal that so many don't obtain. What is it like? Do you have followers?
I have actually some Twitter followers who think I'm like famous too. And I still babysit some like weeknights or some after school for some people around California where I live. So those kids I babysit tell all their friends, and they all think it's like super cool. But besides that, writers don't really get paparazzi, which is a great thing, because unlike a movie star or like a singer or a musical artist, your face isn't really out there.
Right.
And I think you kids should think about your favorite book and your favorite author, and think, if you were walking down the street and you passed them, would you notice?
Probably not. You're right.
Probably not. Which is nice for writers, I think.
Great point. I just had another question that you mid-sentence I had, and now of course it's gone.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was great. Oh, well, I want to say too, now you have about 50 more big fans that are coming your way.
We'll see when I'm back in New Jersey, because my family lives in New Jersey, if they recognize me out.
Should we tell them, Korrie Leer, about how we know each other?
I guess you should.
So Korrie Leer was a soccer player before all of this, and we played on the same soccer team. Many of my students right now during quarantine, especially one named Chloe, are trying to beat their juggling scores.
Oh,
fun. They have all this extra time. So Korrie was actually a college soccer player, and I played high school soccer with Korrie, but I never knew her as someone that was going to be writing books or illustrating books. So I think it's really cool that our paths have crossed in this way.
Yeah, I think soccer kind of took over from like art for most of my childhood.
Do you think you'll ever write about soccer?
I have some ideas. There are just a lot of sports books out there, so I'd want it to be very different, but I have some ideas.
Very cool. And again, I just lost my thought, and my students are going to yell at me. Let's look at their questions here. Sorry about that.
No problem. I guess they all know you played soccer.
They do.
They probably love it.
We like to play kickball, and I like to see how far I can still kick the ball.
Oh, fun.
It brings me back. Okay, let's talk about rejection a little bit more.
Sure.
Do you get feedback on your books, or is it just a straight no?
Sometimes it's really just a no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because people in publishing have so many books to read through. So they're getting sent, it can be like 100 books a day that they're just reading through and trying to pick out the ones that they like the most. So sometimes they don't have time, and those rejections definitely hurt the most, because you're just like, why? Like, what didn't you like?
Oh, sorry.
Is that you? I thought that was me.
Go ahead.
And then sometimes you get a little bit of feedback, which I took as like I was getting somewhere a little farther. Like I was like, oh, my book must be getting a little better, because now instead of just a straight no, it's like, you should try and change these pictures a little bit this way, or your writing needs a little bit of work, but we liked it besides that. So it really just depends. And again, just accepting it, trying not to let it stop you from writing or drawing, and just keep moving forward. That's the most important thing.
All right, so I don't want to keep too much of your time. Is there anything else that you would have a young author, or any advice that you would give to yourself as a young author that would be meaningful to them?
Yeah, definitely. I think the most important thing they should remember from what I've said is your writing will be bad the first time. And the trick is to know that and then just keep moving forward with working on it. The second thing is, if you love your work and it's something you want to read and you feel is important, that's enough. Even if your best friend doesn't like it, or it's not good enough for your teacher, it's just an opinion, and writing and drawing is all about opinion, and someone out there will appreciate that you did it.
Awesome. So do you feel that any student could become an author if they're dedicated enough? And
I do. Yeah, definitely. If they really want to do it and they're ready to push past rejection and receive feedback on their work and just keep working on it, I 100% think that any student can do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Anything else to add for them?
No. Do you want to tell them the surprise?
The next surprise?
Yeah.
All right. The next surprise, drum roll. So you guys knew that I was meeting with an author, so I kept that from you for a little bit and teased that. So now I got to meet with Korrie, and I said there's a couple more things coming your way. So the next part of the surprise is, go ahead, Korrie.
I will be reading all of your work and picking, is it one winner?
One winner.
One winner, my favorite book, and you will be given a surprise.
So something, either artwork from her book, or since her copy's not out yet, something handwritten to you and signed.
It'll be a prize from me personally.
From the author, Korrie Leer, directly to you, which I think is super cool. And that will be the next surprise. And there's still one more coming that we haven't told you yet, so you'll have to stand in. By the way, before we go, do you have a copy of your book, or is that completely...
I have it on my computer. So if I send it to you, I think you could upload it to them. It's a PDF file, so they could like scroll through on their computer.
Of your book?
I do have it. I am allowed to share with a certain amount of people before it's published. Yep.
Wow. Okay, well, I don't want to give it all away. Maybe is there a way you could just do a couple pages, or?
Yeah, I think I could do like the first 5 pages, like
really?
A little preview surprise. Yeah, what do you think?
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's another added surprise for me too. I'm going crazy right now. Wow,
yep.
You have gone above and beyond for my class, and we are so thankful for you. You have no idea. This has been something to look forward to in a time where all of us are struggling, and we miss our classmates, and we miss being in school, and it's hard to sit down ourselves each day and get our work done because, like you, all of a sudden we're all working from home.
Trust me, I know it's hard, but I'm really excited to read everyone's work, like really excited to see it all. And this meant a lot to me too. Like I said, this is my first class visit, even though it's not really a real visit, but this is the first class I'm ever talking to as an author, so I'll remember you guys forever. Well, maybe I'll meet you one day.
To New Jersey, we'll have to set something up, and whether maybe it's with the winner, and we can get you ice cream or something.
I would love that.
But we will look forward to when you are back in New Jersey. Thank you so much. Before Zoom kicks us off, I'm trying to wrap it up.
Oh yeah, I forgot it's time.
I appreciate you.
Bye, Tori.